Good day, learners, parents, and guardians. We'd like to welcome you to our presentation, where we will get to share some information about occupational therapy with you. Occupational therapy was officially named as a profession in 1921 and has been offered at UCT for the past over 50 years. Occupation is the everyday, ordinary, and extraordinary things we engage in, such as sleeping, eating, taking a walk, tying our shoelaces, the basic everyday things that we do. So if we think about you as a learner, you engage in learning, self-care, maybe some leisure activities such as hiking or swimming, but also you do extraordinary things like making videos or TikToks, developing resources, or actually just managing your budgets. So if any of us has difficulty in engaging in these occupations that we do every day, the occupational therapist will intervene and support you so that you are able to lead a meaningful and purposeful life again. But also, as occupational therapists, we do consider context all the time. Because sometimes context is the reason why we cannot engage in our occupations. So at this stage, I would like to ask you to take out your smartphones and type up the question, what is your favorite occupation? Or answer that question in the Mentimeter using the code on the screen. Remembering that occupations are things that you do all the time. Let's see what people have to say for us. Remember, while we are also chatting to you, you can ask questions in the Q&A chat. I'm so eager to see what people are going to say, what their favorite occupation is. Get those fingers typing. So remember what I've said, it's things that you do every day. It's the ordinary and extraordinary things. You don't have to think about it really. Just think about what you do when you get up in the morning, what you do when you go to sleep at night. Oh, yes, great. Lots of people are thinking about sport. That's wonderful to see. And of course, your hobbies such as cooking and eating. Yes, everybody loves eating. Even being an occupational therapist, yes. Talking to your friends, listening to music, socializing. It's great to see that there's such a vast array of what people think occupations are. So I can see lots of you love socializing and cooking and eating, and it's just changing all the time. It's getting more and more. Yeah, so it's really just, if you think about, I get up in the morning, I brush my teeth, I go for a walk, or whether it is I get up, brush my teeth and eat, it's that every day, every little thing you do, every little thing you engage in during the day, those are the occupations that we as occupational therapists essentially look at and make sure that you are able to engage in to lead an optimal life and that you have good health and well-being. And the Mentimeter is just going all the time. It seems that sleep has been the top option today. So having said that, let's now chat to my colleague, Melissa, and let's hear a little bit about her journey, her road to occupational therapy. So Melissa, can you tell us what inspired you to become an occupational therapist?
So my journey really started when I was in grade 7. I joined, that was my first encounter with an occupational therapist. And I was part of this community group where the occupational therapist engaged with us and we developed some exciting games. And as part of the process, we've entered this into multiple competitions, and as a result have entered them into an international competition which afforded us to travel. And this was really huge for a girl from Lavender Hill. And so as I, journeyed on and went through high school, as part of my grade 11 project, I really had to think about what is it that I want to do as a career choice. And I remembered this occupational therapist that I encountered, and I reached her wanting to know what it was that she did. And I think, yes, fast forward to now, I've applied to UCT to study at UCT, and I'm now working at UCT as a clinical educator.
Oh, wow, Melissa, that's very inspiring, from being a recipient of occupational therapy to becoming an occupational therapist. So can you now share with us what you are currently doing as an occupational therapist, and what students can actually, the type of work they can actually do once they qualify?
Yes, so I'm currently working in community development practice, and that part of OT is really where we involve and we engage with NGOs, and then also organizational development. And then as you can see on the screen, there are five main areas that occupational therapists really work in. This is child learning development and play, and here we work with young learners, young kids around, and they may have various diagnoses such as autism or just developmental delays, and we work with them on that for them to play and learn. And focus on physical health for persons who had an amputation or and this may happen in various settings as well. And then we also work on within mental health and come alongside people who have issues, problems with supported employment, and so we come alongside them, working with persons with depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and then also work practice. And here you may find occupational therapists actually working in a legal setting or an insurance company, and again working with persons perhaps with a disability in the workplace and making recommendations to employers to do.
Great. So it's time to get that fingers typing again. So let's look at what you have to say. Where do occupational therapists work? So to our audience out there, the Mentimeter code will be up again, and let's answer the question. Where do you think occupational therapists work? Oh, wow. I see we have a graph up on screen, and my eyesight is not that good, so I can't really see. Melissa, can you help me? Are you able to see what people are really saying out there?
Yes, so I see a lot of people have indicated private practice, schools, hospitals. I see some people have yes indicated mines. Good. So even in Korea.
So I think people really have a good idea of where occupationals can find themselves after qualifying, and that in actual sense, an occupational therapist can actually go and work anywhere. Great. So let's move on, and we'll now thank Melissa, and we'll move on to Dean, who is a fourth-year occupational therapy student, to give us some insight as to what the qualities of a person that would like to do this type of work. So this is working with people with problems in their occupations. So Dean, can you share with us what excites you about being an occupational therapist?
So I realized the qualities of being an OT while in high school. I enjoyed connecting with people. I was always thinking critically about things, how diagnoses affect people's ability to do things, and how I can be of support to them, and that OT would provide me with the opportunity to contribute towards society in a meaningful way.
Okay, great. So you're currently in your fourth year, but what do you really think about the curriculum that you were exposed to over these past 4 years?
So I like that there was a balance between the theory and the practical application within the course. The first 2 years are foundational knowledge and assessments. These assessments are then linked to practical visits. Then the final 2 years, you get to actually go out and practice with supervision in various domains that Melissa mentioned. Overall, I enjoy thinking critically about what people do every day, what limits their participation, and how we can problem solve together to get them to do the things they love and find meaningful.
Oh, Dean, I think you forgot to tell the audience about the amazing staff at this division, eh? And how we inspire you to become good OTs. But thanks for that. But what I'd really like to know is, after completing your sponsor next year, where would you like to work? What is your passion?
So mental health would be my first choice, as this is case as is that most cases is a revolving door which needs to stop and can only happen with the appropriate interventions that OT provides.
Wow. And only we can do that, right? To stop that revolving door. Because as Melissa said, we can work anywhere. So that means we'll have to find ourselves up in those government spaces to be able to change some systemic problems. Thanks, Dean, for enlightening us about that. So let's ask the audience, what are the qualities of an occupational therapist? Get those fingers working, guys. So yes, patience, definitely. Critical thinking all the time, all the time. Caring, yes. We have to be compassionate. Creative problem solving, I love that because it's about creativity as well. Yes, communication, absolutely, absolutely. And you'll find once you start studying, we'll talk about communication all the time. Dedication, we can go nowhere if we're not dedicated and we're not passionate about what we do. But I see that big, bold word in the middle, patience and caring, definitely. We have to care for those around us to be able to make it work. Yes, and empathy, although it's laying on the side, but we have to be empathetic towards our clients. And every time this Mentimeter changes, I just see critical thinking popping up all the time. And what makes us critical thinkers? That is what we actually have to think about whilst we're in our matric year or in grade 11 and working towards our application for occupational therapy. So again, patience seems to be the word of the day out there of becoming a good OT. And on that note, I'd like to say that occupational therapy is where science, creativity, and compassion collides. And that's exactly what you said when you mentioned what are the good qualities of being an OT. I'd like to thank Dean and Melissa for joining me on this panel and enlightening you about occupational therapy. But now we'd like to move over and see which are the questions that you posed for us and how we can answer those questions for you.
There is a question about whether occupational therapists work in psychiatric hospitals. Maybe Dean could answer that question.
Yeah, sure. So we absolutely work in psychiatric hospitals. Last year I had one of my, so we call it blocks. So when I said we do practical visits. So I was there for 7 weeks, I think, at a psychiatric hospital, and this was Falkenberg Hospital. So we are very involved there. And as I said, it's a revolving door. So this is where OT really comes into place, and we really have to show our skills and how we can actually help those people. So yeah.
Thank you, Dean. Melissa, I wonder if you could help us give the audience some information pertaining to the difference between OT and physio.
Sure. So for me, really, the core purpose of occupational therapists' job is to focus in on what people do and what really limits their participation. And so, yes, a core function perhaps of physiotherapy may be the function and various systems within the body to get that working again, whether that's muscular or pain. But an occupational therapist come alongside, and Shireen has mentioned earlier, we look at the whole holistic person. We look at which context they are in, what environments are they working, are they living, are they playing, are they just doing everyday life. And so sometimes, yes, we may very well want to work on the person, the individual. We also have to look at the environment, and oftentimes our work is working on the environmental barriers so that we sort of just tackle that and avoid those limitations from impacting what people want to do, essentially.
Another question to any of the panelists. where can learners go and shadow for occupational therapy?
Maybe I'll share an example of where I shadowed, and list wants to give an example of where they have job shadowed, but I particularly went to a job at the Cape Rehabilitation Center, and this is at a place in Mitchell's Plain, and it's a sort of long-term rehabilitation where patients who had a stroke or physical impairment, a traumatic brain injury, they would perhaps be admitted there for a stint or a period of 3 months and receive intensive rehabilitation before they are then discharged home to go back into the community and back home. So I have done my job shadowing.
I also think that most of the tertiary hospitals actually do have open days where students can come in and come and shadow in different various departments.
Dean?
So I job shadowed at a school, primary school. There was an OT there, and she was just really helpful. I learned so much. So I think that's always a good, especially if you enjoy working with kids. I think that's an awesome place to job shadow someone. Yeah.
And then there's a question in the last, or it seems to be one of the last questions about the prospects within South Africa for OTs.
Well, that's a difficult question. But I also just believe we can be and do anything that we want to. The skills that you learn during your 4 years as a student is phenomenal. So you can create any opportunity and make that an occupational therapy opportunity. I've never looked back at life and thought about there's no jobs available. It is what you make of it. And you can create your own opportunity, whether it's at an NGO, whether it's at a school. You just use the contacts you have and you create it. I never limit myself, and I tell my own family, and I'll tell the students all the time that you can be and do anything you want to once you've got that 4 years behind you, because we are phenomenal.
I think maybe if I could add, Hanska, just to also indicate, just add on to what Shireen is saying, that we are seeing more occupational therapists take up spaces, for example, within dental structures, being part of ministerial groups, because essentially it's what people do that concerns us and what is impacting on what they are able to do and find meaningful. And so we are seeing OTs going into legal, parts of legal work within governmental structures, within large corporate companies, within community development, USAID positions, NGO sectors that are actually international as well. So it's quite a broad variety of areas that you can enter.
So Melissa, you're saying that the world is your oyster.
I believe that, Hanska.
Okay, another question is about job security for occupational therapy. Maybe Shireen?
Well, I suppose it's like in any other job. If you've got your foot in the door if you are ethical, if you're professional, the job will be yours. It's about work ethic at the end of the day. And it's the same in any other job you find yourself in. I think that wherever you find yourself, you will know up front, is this a 3-month position? Is it a 6-month position? Or is it a permanent position? I think your job is as secure as you make it. And again, it goes right back to what you have been taught. And I believe that we will be secure as occupational therapists if we can show them what our worth is.
Okay, the last question is just about OTs shadowing during COVID-19. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's been quite difficult in the sense that lots of the placements where we find ourselves, or the hospitals or schools, they have had limited people coming onto the premises. So it's been quite difficult, and we've had to figure out ways and means of actually overcoming this. And I think we've done quite well as a university to create opportunities for people to actually shadow via Zoom even. And I know our clinical educators have done wonderful things where students actually haven't needed to go into placements to actually physically work with people, but still be able to learn exactly what was needed for them to know. So in the same way, those opportunities will be created in this COVID times. And even though they might say with the open day will now be over 3 or 4 days instead of 1 day, so that we have that opportunity so that the students can still come in and do what they need to do and observe what they need to observe. I hope that answers the question.
The last question is about community service required for OT. Last question, quickly.
I don't mind going for that. So as an undergrad degree, you can see I'm actually wearing my scrub uniform at the moment, which is very cool. And you can continue wearing it next year when you do your ComServe. So I will be finishing my 4-year undergrad degree, and then that comes with 1 year community service that you apply for, and the government really places you somewhere inside South Africa, and you work for the government for 1 year. The full year, hard work, you are a working adult now, and then you gain just so much experience from that in that 1 year. And then once you're done with that, you are officially a qualified occupational therapist. So yeah.
And don't forget, registered with HPCSA.
Yes.
Well, thank you, team.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And we hope to see you once you apply here at UCT.